Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 855B, and today's date is December 30th, 2015, and the title of the episode is U.S. Government Uses Propaganda to Convince the World They Brought Peace to Syria. Now, before I get started, I just want to make two announcements. The videos on YouTube, they have blank spaces at the end. This was a problem with the software, but it's solved now, and we shouldn't have these problems as we go forward. And for those people who told me about the problem, thank you very much for letting me know. It's nice to have another set of eyes looking at this and realizing that something is wrong. The other announcement is tomorrow, December 31st, is going to be a news brief. There'll be no report on New Year's Day, and I will continue with the normal reports after New Year's. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the United States government, the Obama administration, NSA, CIA, you name it, they are all in it together to spy on the American people. And they're continually doing this. And we see a lot of senators, they jump on the bandwagon because they think it's the right thing to do. It'll improve their political career. And last week, Senator Richard Burr, a Republican from North Carolina, from the Select Committee on Intelligence, wrote an error-laden piece on the Wall Street Journal in which he claimed that encrypted devices block law enforcement from collecting evidence. And basically, he's saying that there should be backdoors. Law enforcement needs this to stop the terrorists, stop the criminals, and everyone should give up their Fourth Amendment and basically allow this to happen. And his observation, looking at this, tells us that he's not doing things in the best interest of the people, protecting the rights of the people. He's doing this to help his political career. Now, law-abiding citizens have the right to protect their information. I have the right to protect my documents that are in a folder. I put them in a safe. I have the right to protect my house. I lock my house. I have a right to protect my electronic data by using an encryption tool with a key. And guess what? I don't have to give a copy of the key to my house to the police. I don't have to give the combination to my safe to the police or the government or anyone else. And I don't have to give the key to my personal electronic data to the government or the police or anything like that, because it is my private information. Now, can criminals and terrorists use encrypted devices? Well, they can also use locked homes, safes, ciphers, cars, planes. They can use all of this. Remember, encryption is just a tool. What law enforcement really wants is they want an easy way to access everyone's information without getting a warrant or anything like that. They want a backdoor. And we know what happens when we give backdoors. Other criminals find the back door. Just like if, okay, we'll leave the back door of my home unlocked. Guess what? Sooner or later, criminals are going to find them and they'll walk in and take whatever I have. The same thing with electronic security. So he really has to understand that law enforcement, NSA, CIA, they need to go through the proper channels to get what they want. That's it. Because the Fourth Amendment was put there on purpose so the government doesn't continually reach into people's private information. And we all need to protect ourselves all the time. Just like you lock your house, just like you lock your car, you put things in a safe to protect it. Well, the same thing with your electronics, with your messages, with your text, with your email. Use an encrypted service. Use an encrypted email service. You can use startpage.com. That allows you to search on the internet without giving away where you are, who you are. Kind of masks that, like a layer between the search and Google and other corporations. You can also use blockatpocket.com. That is a sleeve that is interwoven with metals into fabric, which blocks the signal. You can stick your phone in there, your iPad. You can put your credit cards that have those RFID chips in there so people walking by can't scan your cards. Once you get the real ID from DHS, which has an RFID chip in it, you can put it into that little pouch. So there are ways to protect yourself. So when any of these government employees come out, or these people from these agencies tell us that we need to give up our security, no, we need to keep our security. That keeps us completely free and apart from the government employees. We don't want them poking into our business. Now, out in D.C., we see that the FAA is now forcing dozens of drone clubs in Washington to shut down, because what they did is they basically enacted a 30-mile limit around the nation's capital where you cannot fly a drone. So it's a no-fly zone. And in this 30-mile radius, there's about 36 flying clubs who are accredited, but they cannot fly their drones in this area. And it seems like they're continually pushing the no-fly zone further and further out. Some of the areas include Baltimore, Maryland, and they reach as far as into many of the open fields in Virginia. And this is causing a problem because people are saying, why are we being downed here? We're not even near anywhere. And we can see why they're doing this, because they feel that drones are a complete and utter threat to this area, and they're going to continually push back and push back because they're not trying to keep you safe. They don't want people with cameras spying on the entire area. That's what they're trying to do at this point. And this will spread across the country. We know the FAA has come out with certain laws where you can't fly drones in certain areas. You have to get them licensed. They'll do whatever they possibly can to keep all of these drones grounded. And they're continually putting up more and more barriers in front of the government buildings, like the White House. They put up the fence and they put up another buffer zone. They made the fence a little bit higher, then they put spikes on it. And they continually do this. They put more armed guards. And of course they use that, these people are jumping the fences. There's no one around. And they keep using these examples of why they need to do all of this. And the reason they are doing all of this is because they're very nervous about this entire system falling apart and people getting together saying enough is enough, we can't take this anymore. And they're worried about people coming to the White House, to the government buildings, and demanding these people resign because what they've done to our country. Now, out in Afghanistan, we know the United States government central bankers were never leaving. We know NATO was never leaving. And we see right now that Russia is saying their mission, US and NATO, their mission in Afghanistan, is a complete and utter failure. Just like Syria, just like Iraq, they're calling them out on this, saying you're not in there to defeat the Taliban, you're not in there to defeat terrorism, you're in there to grow poppies, to sell them as opium across the ocean to many different countries, to pay for covert operations, and to keep this war on terror continually operational. Remember, they're not going to leave Afghanistan. It is in a strategic location. They have an oil pipeline. They have a huge deposit of lithium, huge deposit of China, Russia and China, huge deposit of copper, I should say, and Russia and China are in this country. Right now, we see the top U.S. commander, Campbell, wants to bring in more troops into Afghanistan. He will soon brief the senior leaders on the security situation in Afghanistan and the troop levels required for their missions. And he's saying that a lot of people are not going to be happy for what he's going to ask for, and which means he's going to be asking for troops to go back into Afghanistan. And for those troops that are already there to remain there into 2016 and maybe beyond. Now we see the Normandy 4 leaders have talked on the phone about reaffirming the commitment to ceasefire in Donbass. And basically they're saying that we need to hold these elections in the beginning of the year of 2016 because they were supposed to be held this year in 2015. And they're still talking about extending the ceasefire agreement. Russia wants it, of course, extended. Kiev is not pushing to have it extended, but they might be forced to have it extended into 2016. And we know that a lot of the military assets in Kiev have been moved around to the front of the contact line. We know there's a lot being prepared for something to happen. Poroshenko is already saying, listen, and he's bringing this up once again, if Donbass wants elections, we should bring in an EU peacekeeping force. Well, basically what he wants is a EU force in this area to take control of the southeastern area. That is what he's looking to do. And we're going to have to watch this Ukraine situation very, very carefully. Now, Russia has updated the sanctions against Turkey. They will prohibit Turkish companies operating in Russia. This will take effect come January 1st, all because Turkey shot down their plane. And Turkish companies won't be able to construct buildings, work in architecture and design in Russia. The ban also prohibits Turks working in the travel and hotel business. Turkish companies won't get Russia state and municipal contracts and won't be able to participate in forestry and timber processing. So they're basically cutting Turkey out of Russia right now, putting the screws to them, punishing them for what they've done. Now, Vice President Biden, as he travels to Switzerland next year, he's going to be stopping off in Turkey to talk to Erdogan about what is going on with Syria, what's going on with Russia. And every time we know that Biden stops by, something happens later on. We know it happens in Ukraine. We're going to see it happen in Turkey. He's not going to be talking about peace and ceasefire and just stop whatever you're doing. They're planning on something else at this point. Iraq is continually telling Turkey to pull out of the northern region. If they don't pull out, they are threatening action against their troops. Now, we're going to have to watch that situation very closely because there is a foreign force in a sovereign country, and the sovereign country is telling them to remove their forces, and the country which is occupying Iraq is saying absolutely not. And this could lead to war, and we'll have to watch that very carefully. Now, the USS Harry S. Truman, as we know, is basically in the area where all the fighting's going on in Syria. And it seems like a little false flag was trying to be set up here, or to make everyone believe that Iran was firing at the Harry S. Truman. And what they're saying is that the USS Harry S. Truman, the aircraft carrier, was passing about 1,500 yards away from this missile test, this missile drill that Iran was having. And one of the officials said that the U.S. ships has been in an internationally recognized maritime traffic lane and not in any country's territorial waters during the time of Iran's naval exercises. Iran issued a warning over maritime radio shortly before conducting the missile test, asking vessels to remain clear. And the Harry S. Truman was about 1,500 yards away from the launch location. The rockets were directed off the carrier's starboard side, away from commercial ships and the traffic lane. So, really, were they in any danger? No. But what are they doing? They're provoking. Now, China could say that launch of the Trident missile, which was heading towards China in the Pacific, that's an act of provocation. That wasn't relayed to all the countries that this was going to happen. So, it seems like they were pushing this meme right now for everyone to go, ooh, look, Iran is provoking the United States. Which this is not what was happening at this point. We see the Syrian forces. They have established control over the central square in the town of Sheikh Miskin, near the Al-Omari Mosque in the province of Dara, and it looks like they're making more and more gains. Those towns that were liberated from al-Nusra the Islamic State, the Free Syrian Army, the people are coming out saying when they were occupied, their lives were a living hell. And we have to remember one thing. All these terrorist groups, the Free Syrian Army, they are the proxy army for the United States. And the way they were treating the people in these areas, basically it's war crimes. And they were saying that the atrocities and everything that was happening was absolutely horrific. Now, the U.S. came out, and you just have to laugh at this, because you know, as soon as Russia stepped in, they're destroying the Islamic State. They're driving them back. They lost 14% or more of the territory already. The Free Syrian Army is being evacuated from certain areas. The Islamic State is being airlifted out of Syria by Qatar, Turkey, the United States, Saudi Arabia, and brought into different regions. But the State Department spokesman, John Kirby, is saying that, hey, one of our success stories for 2015 is that the United States brought peace and security to Syria. And we're helping the country's people at a difficult time. No, they caused all of this. They created the Free Syrian Army. Most of them are paid mercenaries. They're not even Syrians. They've created Al-Qaeda. They've created the Islamic State. They created most of the terrorist groups inside Syria. They've been bombing their infrastructure, making their lives a living hell. Since they started doing this back, in 2011? The United Nations Security Council reported that the Syrian conflict has now killed 250,000 people and displaced 12 million. 80% of the Syrians were living in poverty in 2014. How is this a success for the United States? They're riding on the coattails of Russia and what they've been doing with the Islamic State. They're trying to convince the world that they're hitting the Islamic State. So let me see. United States was in there for a year or so. They couldn't make any headway whatsoever. They said this battle was going to be going on for years. Of course they said this because they didn't know how long it was going to take to get rid of Assad. Russia comes in 2 or 3 months later. All of a sudden, the Islamic State is losing ground, losing territory. They're being airlifted out, and the country's being liberated. And the United States is trying to take credit for this? It's complete and utter propaganda against everyone to convince the world that the United States has done this when they have not. Actually, it is the opposite of what they've done. They destroyed the lives. They've destroyed the country. They made Syrian people, their lives, a living hell. Now, Turkey is out there saying that they basically thwarted a suicide attack from the Islamic State because they are trying to convince everyone that they're also being attacked by the Islamic State. But we already know they train them, they support them, they buy the oil. If they're wounded, they bring them into Turkey. So all this is propaganda, complete propaganda. Now, it looks like the fear that the U.S. government central bankers are using is now affecting countries. We see Brussels, the Brussels mayor, is canceling New Year's Eve fireworks over the threat of something might happen. So it looks like the fear-mongers are winning, and we should never let them win. They should fire off the fireworks to show them that we're not afraid. If you have your false flag, everyone should be ready with a camera to point out that this is a false flag. But it looks like they're hiding, they're scared. And this is what they're trying to do to each one of these countries, is to make them afraid to do anything anymore. And we know that this is not terrorists. It is the proxy army of the United States government central bankers. Berlin is on high alert as Germans expect some type of terror attack in 2016. A Swiss army chief is now warning of social unrest, and he's calling upon the citizens to arm themselves. Swiss Army Chief Andre Blattmann warned in a Swiss newspaper, "The risk of social unrest in Europe is now soaring. Blattman fears that increasing aggression in public discourse is an explosively hazardous situation and advises the Swiss people to arm themselves and warns that the basis for Swiss prosperity is being called into question. The threat of terror is rising. Hybrid wars are being fought around the globe. The economic outlook is gloomy, and the resulting migration flows of displaced persons and refugees have assumed unforeseen dimensions. It's funny. The Swiss are saying arm yourself for terrorism, for social unrest. In the United States and many of the other European countries, they're saying disarm yourself when you see terrorists come into your country. So this is kind of odd. Wouldn't you want your population armed to the teeth to fight social unrest and terrorism? To protect the country and their way of life? You would want this. But you could see that all of these false flag events are basically getting all intertwined, because some of the false flags are for gun control. We have another group saying it's terrorism. We have another group saying it's, racist. And they're mixing them all up, and they have no one specific narrative anymore. It's getting all completely confused because there's so many different groups trying to push their own agendas. But if there truly were terrorism, and there are truly people coming to get us, we, the people, would be armed and ready. We wouldn't have a government telling us to disarm. And this Swiss Army chief is right. With the collapse of the economy, with more false flag events, and potential riots that most likely will follow the collapse, yes, people are going to need to protect themselves. It is going to be a very scary time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.